So the second article for today is What's Your Google Strategy? So it's written by Hagiu and David B. Yoffie. So this is again about multi-sided platforms. So in this article, they define multi-sided platforms or MSPs as products, services, or technologies that connect different types of customers to one another. So an example for this is credit card companies and eBay. They link consumers and merchants. And Google search engine, they connect advertisers and users. And Windows platform, they connect application developers, users, and OEMs. And Blu-ray content providers, manufacturers of DVD, they connect manufacturers of DVD players and consumers. So, as I said earlier, MSPs are used to be seen as an obscure strategic platform. But because of the power of internet and the related technology, it has become important for all companies today where they find themselves acting either as an MSP or as a player on someone else's MSP. So this presentation it's focused on how to select the right MSP strategy for your business. So there are 3 steps to set a clear platform strategy. And first is decide whether to play with an existing MSP or build your own platform or do both. And if you conclude that a third party MSP can benefit your business, the second question is um, to partner with one MSP or many, because you should determine whether your company should join one platform or many platforms. And when you know which MSP that you're going to participate in, you figure out how to play or which features or services should you adopt for your company and which should you reject in order to maintain a competitive advantage. So this particular article is written in 2009. So most of the examples are uh, relatively old in technology timeline. So first, we go to the first step is to ask if you should use an existing MSP or build your own. So first, we must consider the risk of an MSP to hold you up, meaning to use its power against you to capture more value for itself. So first is the price increases that a company can impose once their MSPs become successful. And after So an example of this is um, when the personal computers market was gained Win by Microsoft Windows, they raised the prices of its license to OEMs almost every other year for 2 decades. So secondly, a company can hold up its players by vertically integrating into the players' businesses. The company that controls a successful MSP also controls the interface between the players and the end users, which gives them the power to dictate the rules of engagement. So in Microsoft's case, they invaded other companies by adding features to Microsoft Office and Microsoft Explorer or Internet Explorer. And in the case of eBay, they expanded into payment systems. And in Google, they build more and more applications to its core offerings. Now we have Google Images, Google Flights. And for Facebook, they're introducing new features previously provided by its third party vendor. Now, the third way that an MSP can hold you up is by using its powers to weaken your relationship with your customers by taking control over end customers or by inviting other players to compete in your product category. So this will be our main example for this. No? Um, this is what happened with Toys R Us. So basically, Toys R Us had a 10-year deal with Amazon. So this was in 2009. So this is a long time ago when Amazon was not as big as it is now. So Toys R Us had a 10-year deal with Amazon to sell their products exclusively for $50 million annually. But eventually, see Amazon, they also offered other small businesses like Toys R Us were selling similar products, which competed with Toys R Us, their store in Amazon. So this ate the market for Toys R Us in the Amazon website. So what happened is Toys R Us sued Amazon for it. They won the case, but they were not awarded the $200 million that they were asking for all the damages. So aside from the yung nalugi no ni Toys R Us dun sa sa ginawa ni na pag-hold up ni Amazon sa kanya, they also lost all those years na they could have started to build their own, which is what they did eventually. And this just didn't happen with Toys R Us. It also happened with Borders, Circuit City, Gap, and HMV, who all had a similar case when they joined Amazon in 2000 and in 2001. So sobrang decades ago na. But that's what happened. So, with all the risk of hold up from existing MSPs, it's recommended to build your own only if you are a strategic player. So, what is a strategic player? So, a strategic player can wield substantial power in the market or can team up with enough other players to gain the upper hand. So, they're the ones that we can recommend to build their own. So, they can do so by one, build a proprietary platform by yourself, or they can they can partner with other companies in order to create value and capture as much of it as possible. And the second is a DIY approach is to create an open MSP which prevents any platform from ever claiming the value. So an example of this is Google's Android OS for mobile phones and Open Social API for developing applications for social network. So this is Google's attempt to prevent Symbian, Microsoft, and Apple from becoming the dominant OS for mobile services. And it wants to prevent Facebook and MySpace from dominating the social network. Of course, now we don't have Symbian anymore. And we don't have MySpace anymore because Facebook is dominating that. But at least they were successful in Android. So on the other hand, one common one of the common mistakes of the company is grossly overestimating their own ability to persuade other players to support it. So while Google was successful with Android, Nokia failed to do the same with Symbian OS. So the story here is Nokia, remind you, this is 2009, so before pa, no? Nokia persuaded three other handset manufacturers, they were not named, in creating Symbian OS, but I think the other one is Samsung, kasi it was one in one of the articles. And so Nokia persuaded three other companies to create the Symbian OS, which became the leading smartphone OS with 60% of market share until they developed a customized, incompatible version of the OS, which resulted to application developers not creating applications for them. So, I forgot in what year, I forgot to specify. No, they had about, it said that at that time, they had about 5,000 applications in 7 years in the market. And at the same time, iPhone had 10,000 applications in less than a year. So what happened was, because of the changes that Nokia wanted to do, that would only benefit them. Yun, yung mga application developers, hindi na lang sila gumawa. But that's the core of the operating system, right? And without them, they had no business. So, and also yung partner nilang manufacturers also started to bet on Linux and Windows Mobile, because they feared that Nokia will use its 40% stake to its favor. And meanwhile, Apple iOS and Google Android took the opportunity to catch up, which left Nokia and Symbian to give its software away. So, yun, in the end, Nokia failed in creating a proprietary platform to contain or deter competing platforms while also trying to extract value for itself. So next, so when tapos na yung first question, no, you have decided that you should play with one or more MSPs. The next step is to figure out who to join, or more specifically, should you go with one MSP exclusively or affiliate with several? The answer to that is another question. So the first is which pertains to exclusivity. So, if is exclusivity required? So, if the answer is no, consider joining all those that offer positive net value. So, for example, you're a business that wants to advertise in a search engine website. So, Google and Yahoo does not require exclusive arrangement. So, there's no reason to not to advertise on both, except for the cost, right? Um, so in that case, you should partner with many MSPs. But if the answer to exclusivity is yes, you have to ask as well, will the exclusivity tip the market to one platform or another? Or do you tip the market and allow one winner to take all? So it means that if they require exclusivity, they want or need something from you, which means they may offer more money to get your exclusiveness, or you can get other forms of compensation in exchange for the exclusive relationship. So, for example, hot content producers can demand rival radio and TV broadcasters to bid against each other to get exclusive access to their content. So, yun nga, since this is old, parang at that time, yung mga radio and TV broadcasters na in demand can have they can bid against each other para they can have exclusive content. An example of this is satellite radio, when they paid $500 million for a 5-year contract with radio personality Howard Stern, um, para matalo nila yung kalaban nila na XM. So in the long run, the most critical consideration for of strategic players are, for as an example, Samsung and Motorola. They played with multiple MSPs, Symbian, Windows Mobile, Linux, PAL OS, because it was hard to tell which platform might win at that time. Siyempre, marami pang nagsa-startup na OS. And at that time, they were not large enough to tip the market to one operating system. Unlike Apple, 'di ba? They have the power, or at least they had the power to do it. They competed with the big Android OS. So of course, the downside of this in joining multiple MSPs is yung extra engineering and marketing and support that's required to play with several MSPs. But that's another risk that the companies will have to take. And in the last case, it's for Time Warner, when they had the opportunity to tip the market and allow one winner to take all. So that was what happened with Toshiba led that HD DVD, and Sony led Blu-ray. So for more than 2 years. Si Time Warner, they were hoping that HD DVD would win because they had 50% of market share on HD DVD and only 20% on Blu-ray. And also, Sony was their competitor because they're also producing movies and TVs, right? So it would only grow faster if the Sony-led Blu-ray disc became the standard. But for all those years that the two were competing, there was no standard, and consumers were slowing purchases. And with the threat of digital downloads, kasi at that time, di pa naman talamak yung digital downloads and wala pang mga Netflix. So customers will either buy DVD or Blu-ray. It feels like a long time ago, no? Kasi we don't buy either anymore. But at that time, that's the challenge of the businesses like Time Warner. And so eventually, Time Warner decided to let go of HD DVD, and because they own 50% of that stake, because they had 50% stake in HD DVD, nag-flop na rin si HD DVD. Nawala na rin siya because they had lost the support of Time Warner. So, Blu-ray became the standard. So, in this case, Time Warner had to take the they had the opportunity to get to allow one winner to take all. They had the upper hand. They had the privilege to tip the market. And while it hurt their long-term profits, it is still better for the entire business. And without the exclusive commitment early on, they were able to bet on who would win, right? It's just that what they initially betted on or bet on didn't win. But they still had the stake in Blu-ray, so they had some win in that. So the next one, sorry. Okay, so the last one. So adopt which features of the MSP. So now, in choosing how to use an MSP, uh, it is recommended to consider the ways in which you will able to do so. So the first one is to differentiate yourself from competitors conducting businesses on the same platform. For non-strategic players that lack the power to influence an MSP's action, all they can do is choose from the menu of contracts offered by the MSPs. For example, yung example kanina, yung the one that's choosing between Google and Yahoo for advertisement, when they decide to avail yung services ni Google for advertisement, they can't dictate what the terms will be. Kumbaga, Google will just present them with the menu, and they will follow whatever Google demands. The only difference would be how much they are willing to spend. So in the case of LinkedIn, being a non-strategic player, they mixed and matched the advantages of open social. Actually, I don't see this open social anymore. Anyway, they mix and match the advantages of open social with its own products. So it did not allow application developed for open social members to work on LinkedIn, but it continued to offer the proprietary calendar application that allows LinkedIn members to find out who else from LinkedIn and other networks is attending an event. So in this case, they capture the value that open social can give them without giving in too much power to open social. Kumbaga, they only availed enough services that could benefit them by not giving too much power to the MSP open social. So meanwhile, mga strategic players have more options. They can either go with an MSP with the MSP offer or use their power to obtain a custom deal. So an example for this is Electronic Arts or EA. It's the world's largest video game developer and publisher. So they forced Microsoft Xbox to give in to its demands in online gaming. So initially, the story is initially Microsoft demanded that game companies use its proprietary tools in developing their online games and allow Microsoft to handle customer service billing and administration. Pero ayaw ni EA because they fear that those terms they're giving too much control to the MSP. And they fear that eventually Microsoft will use that power to control the company or how they operate. And parang initially, they didn't want Microsoft to feel that they have much power this early on because it might continue as their relationship progress. So what they did was they included an online functionality in the versions of their games exclusive for Sony PlayStation, which is the competitor of Xbox. And this put Xbox at a disadvantage. So eventually, Microsoft gave in and they allowed EA to maintain control over its own user data, marketing, and billing. And they also agreed to give EA financial compensation. So that is how a strategic player such as EA was able to leverage its position to make the terms agreeable on their end. And then, lastly, MSPs will soon be a fact of life for all companies, and big and small. So MSPs can reduce search and transaction costs and can give access to markets that they can achieve on their own. But they must resist the herd mentality given all the risks involved in playing with MSPs. They must adequately understand their motives and operating strategies. Google of tomorrow is unlikely to be the same platform as the Google of today. So today's players can be tomorrow's platform. Players should also be on the lookout for opportunities that tip to their advantage. If you play really well on MSP, you may even be able to dictate the rules of the game. That's it.